You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Welcome back to another AI Mondays here on The Vocal Technologist. It is Monday morning, which, that usually means dragging yourself out of bed, staring into a coffee cup, and just regretting Saturday night.
A lot of regret, usually.
But today feels different. Apparently Monday is now for writing billion-dollar checks and figuring out which robot is going to buy our groceries.
It really is one of those mornings where you have to check the headlines twice, just to make sure you're not hallucinating all the zeros.
Exactly. So let's set the scene for everyone. It is Friday, January 30, 2026. And if you haven't looked at the tech landscape in, the last week, you might as well have been asleep for a decade. The ground has just completely shifted.
It really has. We're seeing a consolidation of power, of capital, that is. It's frankly unprecedented in the industry.
We're watching a trillion-dollar poker game happen in real time. And look, we talk about big numbers in tech all the time, right? But the figures flying around OpenAI, Amazon, Microsoft this week, they're eye-watering.
They really are.
They're start-your-own-space program numbers.
I know, but I think what's so fascinating here isn't just the money. The money is sort of a symptom.
Okay.
The real story is what that money is buying. We're watching the industry pivot right now from an AI that just talks to you to an AI that actually does things for you.
The shift from chatbots to agents, that's the big theme we have to dig into. But before we get to the robots taking over our browsers, we have to follow the money. Because, without the cash, none of this silicon actually runs.
That's right.
So we've got a packed discussion. We're going to look at this massive consolidation of capital. We're going to look at Apple's very quiet, very specific moves in audio, which is totally different. We'll talk about the explosion of agents, and then we have to get into this big philosophical debate that's breaking out. Are we hitting a dead end, or are we about to birth a, quote, country of geniuses?
It is the existential question of the week for sure.
So let's start with the war chests. We've been hearing rumors, but the reports are solidifying. OpenAI. They're reportedly seeking a fundraising round that could total $100 billion.
100 billion.
100 billion. Just so we're clear, that is not a typo, right?
Not a typo. It's a staggering sum. And if you look at who's writing the checks, it tells you exactly where the industry thinks the value is.
Right.
We're seeing reports that Amazon is negotiating a potential $50 billion investment.
Okay, hold on. 50 billion. Amazon has already poured billions into Anthropic. That's OpenAI's main rival. Why would they turn around and fund the direct competition? That just feels like betting on both horses in a two-horse race.
Well, it's a massive hedge, certainly. But it's also an admission that Amazon wants to own the infrastructure layer no matter who wins the model war. If Anthropic wins, Amazon wins. If OpenAI wins, Amazon still wins. It seems like they just want a piece of everything.
Wow.
And it's not just Amazon. SoftBank is reportedly in talks for another $30 billion. So if you add all this up with other contributors, we are pushing toward a valuation for OpenAI of roughly $830 billion.
That is, that's not startup money anymore. That is nation-state GDP money. We are buying a small country kind of money. Why does a software company need that much cash? They're not building cars.
In a way, they sort of are. They're building compute factories. That money signals that the infrastructure costs, the energy, the cooling, the specialized silicon to train the next generation are so high that only the absolute giants can even play this game anymore.
It's becoming a game of industrial scale. But here's where it gets really interesting, especially if you look at Microsoft.
Right.
The Microsoft angle is kind of terrifying to me. It's not just an investment, it's an obligation.
Yeah.
I saw this figure this week that made my jaw drop. Microsoft has a commercial remaining performance obligation of $281 billion, specifically tied to OpenAI.
That's the number, $281 billion.
So break that down for me. Is that debt? Is that like a credit card bill? What does performance obligation actually mean?
You should think of it as a commitment to future services, to future compute power. It's Microsoft promising to provide the data centers, the electricity, the chips, everything to run OpenAI's models for years to come. Microsoft is basically mortgaging its future to OpenAI.
But here's the paradox I just don't get. Microsoft beat their earnings expectations. They're making money hand over fist, and yet their stock dipped 11%. Why?
It's the CapEx issue, capital expenditure. Microsoft is spending money faster than they can print it just to build the data centers to keep up with inference demand.
And inference demand is That's the cost of actually running the AI when I ask it a question, right?
Yeah.
Not the training part.
Correct. Training is teaching it, inference is using it, and the usage is just skyrocketing. They're almost too successful for their own good. The market is looking at that $281 billion obligation, and they're getting really nervous about the margins.
So it's like owning the only gas station in a town where everyone just bought a Ferrari and you were physically running out of fuel to sell them.
That's a very good analogy. And investors are worried about how much fuel Microsoft needs to buy before they see a stable return on it.
Okay, so while the giants are shouting about billions and building data centers in cornfields, let's pivot. Let's talk about the company that usually sits quietly in the corner until they drop a bomb. Apple.
Classic Apple behavior.
While OpenAI is grabbing headlines, Apple's doing that very specific targeted acquisition thing. They just bought a company, Q.ai. It's an Israeli startup. Did you catch what they actually do? Because it did not look like a standard LLM play to me.
I did, and it's very, very telling. Q.ai isn't a make-me-some-text company. They specialize in audio, specifically things like whispered speech recognition and audio enhancement.
Whispered speech. That immediately screams AirPods to me.
It does. And the Vision Pro, if you think about it, Apple isn't trying to win the generate a novel game. They're trying to win the interaction game. They want the AI to understand you when you mutter under your breath in a crowded coffee shop.
That makes so much sense. I always feel weird talking to Siri in public because you have to announce it to the whole room. Hey Siri, what's my schedule? And everyone just looks at you.
Right.
If I could just whisper.
Exactly. It lowers the social friction of using AI. It makes it intimate. And it lines up perfectly with the rumors about Siri. We're hearing that Apple is unveiling a Gemini-powered Siri in February, which is like next week.
Right, and then a more conversational ChatGPT-like version at WWDC in June.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, isn't using Google's Gemini just Apple admitting defeat? Like, we couldn't build the brain, so we're renting it from Google.
I don't think so. I think it's Apple playing a completely different game. We call it the Apple moat.
The moat. Okay, explain that.
Well, for Microsoft and OpenAI, every time you ask a question, it costs them money in a data center. That's the inference cost. They have to spin up a GPU in Arizona to answer you. For Apple, if they can run that inference on the iPhone you already bought.
Oh, it's free for them.
Effectively, yes. The marginal cost is basically zero because you paid for the hardware. And privacy is structural. The data never has to leave your device. That is a huge economic advantage if they can pull it off.
So they're betting that we care more about privacy and battery life than having the absolute smartest AI god in the cloud for every single question.
I think so. It's the difference between renting time on a supercomputer and owning a really smart calculator that's always in your pocket. And that distinction matters, especially as we move into this next area, because the buzzword of 2026 isn't chatbot anymore, it's agent.
Agents, yes. This is the shift you mentioned at the top, from talking to doing. But agent is one of those words that marketing people just love to ruin. What does it actually mean here?
So a chatbot is text in, text out. You ask for a poem, you get a poem. An agent is text in, action out. You say, book me a flight. And it actually navigates the website, enters your details, and buys the ticket. It interacts with the world.
Right. I saw the Google Chrome update this week, the auto browse agent. That feels like the first real mainstream example of this, where you can actually see it happening.
It's rolling out now, yeah. It's wild. You get the split screen view. On one side is your AI, and on the other, you watch the AI actually manipulating the web page, clicking buttons, scrolling.
It's a little like watching a ghost use your computer.
It's transparent agency.
Yeah.
And that visual part is crucial, right? You're not just trusting some black box. You're watching it work. It's building trust by showing you what it's doing.
And then there's shopping. OpenAI is adding a shopping cart section to ChatGPT. Meta is launching personalized AI shopping assistants this year.
It was inevitable. Commerce is the ultimate action. If the AI knows what you want, the next step is to buy it for you.
I have to say, this sounds incredibly dangerous for my credit card bill. If the AI can actually hit buy, impulse control just went completely out the window. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm sad, buy me something nice. And boom, a kayak arrives.
We might need AI financial advisors just to counter the AI shopping assistants. But it's not just consumer stuff. The workplace applications are getting very sophisticated.
Yeah, let's talk about OpenAI's internal tools. They released some details about their data agent. This isn't just a search bar, is it?
No, this is much deeper. It's an internal tool that lets employees go from a vague question to a high-impact data insight in minutes. It doesn't just search. It reasons over the platform. It understands permissions, workflows. It's like having a data analyst sitting next to you.
And Prism. Have you seen this? The scientific writing platform.
Yeah, powered by GPT 5.2, it handles LaTeX, which anyone in academia knows is just a nightmare.
I told him like that.
And revision workflows. It's a research assistant with a PhD. And notice that version number, 5.2. We're iterating so fast. This connects back to Google, too. Gemini 3 is now the default for Google search, and they've introduced something called agentic vision.
Agentic vision. That sounds like a superhero power.
It kind of is. In the past, AI vision just meant describing a picture. This is a cat. Agentic vision means the model can use code and reasoning to perform tasks based on what it sees.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. If you show it a chart of stock prices, it doesn't just say, that's a chart. It can write and run a Python script to extract the data points from that image, verify the trend lines, and then give you a prediction. It's adding a layer of logic and execution on top of just seeing.
Wow. It feels like the software is finally catching up to the promises we heard a couple years ago. But I want to ask the practical question again. What is physically powering all of this? We talked about the money, but where are the chips coming from?
That is the hardware reality check. And right now, it's a tale of two very different strategies.
On one hand, you have Microsoft and their cornfield strategy.
Right. Microsoft is building the Maya 200. This is their custom chip specifically for inference for generating those tokens.
And this is the chip they're deploying in Iowa and Arizona.
Exactly. They're planting these massive data centers where power is cheaper, and the performance is huge, 3 times the performance of Amazon's chips. They're trying to own the silicon so they aren't totally dependent on NVIDIA.
So that's the heavy industrial approach, giant factories. And then on the completely other end of the spectrum, you have a guy with a Mac Mini.
Yes. This was a fascinating paper this week. Someone managed to train a 67 million parameter transformer model entirely on a standard M4 Mac Mini. No giant data center, no liquid cooling.
Just the computer on the desk?
Just the computer on the desk, using Apple's memory architecture.
That is such a stark contrast. Microsoft is building AI factories visible from space, and Apple is proving you can do serious math on the device you use to watch Netflix.
Well, they serve different purposes, but it shows efficient local AI is catching up, and somewhere in the middle we have this massive breakthrough with the H200 GPUs. New techniques now allow running a 1 terabyte model on a single GPU.
Wait, hold on. A 1 terabyte model on one card. Why is that a big deal?
Because previously, a model that size would need a whole cluster of GPUs, maybe 8 or 16 of them, all working in sync. That costs a fortune, uses a ton of energy. If you can fit it on one card, you slash the cost and complexity by an order of magnitude.
So it's basically just fancy compression.
It is. It's called quantization. It's like lowering the resolution of a video just enough so it streams instantly, but it still looks like 4K to your eye. We're figuring out how to make these models lighter without making them dumber.
Okay, so the hardware is getting better, the money is getting bigger, the agents are getting smarter, which brings us to the crossroads. The big picture debate.
The philosophy segment.
It really feels like people are starting to ask, where does this all end?
Yeah.
And there are 2 heavyweight views this week that are just completely at odds.
We do. We have the adolescence of technology view from Dario Amodei and the skeptic view from Yann LeCun.
Let's start with Amodei. He's the one warning about this country of geniuses.
Right. His argument is that we are rapidly approaching a point where AI models have the capability of, well, a country full of geniuses all working together on every problem.
Which sounds great in theory. I mean, who wouldn't want that to solve cancer or climate change?
In theory, yes. But his warning is about who controls that country. He argues that if this level of concentrated intelligence falls into the hands of authoritarian regimes, it could lead to irreversible totalitarianism.
Because you could surveil and control a population with an efficiency no human secret police could ever match.
Exactly. The dictator's dream scenario. He believes the technology is on this exponential curve that isn't stopping, and the risks are existential.
Okay. And then on the other side of the ring, you have Yann LeCun. And he's basically saying, everyone calm down. You're driving down a dead-end street.
LeCun has been very vocal. He argues that the current path, large language models, just predicting the next word, is fundamentally limited. He calls it a dead end.
He's the one who wants world models. What's the difference between an LLM and a world model?
So an LLM predicts the next word based on statistics. It doesn't know why things happen. LeCun says we need models that understand cause and effect. Models that can predict future states, not just future tokens.
Like a physics engine in a video game.
That's a perfect analogy. In a game, if you drop a ball, the engine knows it falls because of gravity. An LLM just knows that after the words drop the ball, the word falls usually comes next. LeCun thinks until we solve that, we're just building a really good autocomplete.
So we have one guy saying, we're about to create a godlike intelligence that could enslave us. And another guy saying, actually, your fancy chatbot is stupid.
That is the tension. And it creates this very strange psychological space in the industry. There's a concept being discussed called possessed machines dynamics.
Ooh, that sounds spooky.
It's not about the AI getting possessed, it's about the people building them. It's an observation that when a small group of people convince themselves they found a truth so important, so world-changing, they start to believe that normal ethics don't apply to them.
They're on a holy mission.
Precisely. And whether they're right or wrong, that belief system is dangerous. It leads to cutting corners and ignoring safety because the mission matters more than the rule.
Because if you think you're saving the world, you don't worry about parking tickets or copyright law.
Or transparency.
Yeah.
And that opacity is where the real risk is.
So, to wrap this all up, we are living in a moment where $100 billion checks are becoming normal.
Yeah.
Your browser is learning to be an employee. And your phone might soon be the smartest thing in the room, literally whispering in your ear.
It's a lot to process, but if there's one takeaway for people, I think it's about context.
Context.
Yeah, there was a mention of something called agent trace. As we flood the world with AI-generated code and content, we need a way to record who wrote it, a human or an AI. The most precious resource in the future isn't going to be compute, it's going to be context. Knowing where an idea came from.
That's a really grounding thought. In a world of infinite generated content, the truth of origin becomes the gold standard.
I believe so.
Well, I'll leave you all with this to chew on for the week. If Yann LeCun is right and LLMs are a dead end, does that mean the $281 billion Microsoft owes is for a bridge to nowhere? Or is Amodei right and we just bought a one-way ticket to a country of geniuses whether we wanted to go there or not?
That is the trillion-dollar question.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep your agents behaving, and we'll catch you next Monday.
Spoken Tech for your ears.